Just because we are on the road this week doesn't mean we're not going to do Wine Wednesday. Of course we would. Mike Roberts joining us. Thanks so much for coming in from Co-op Wine, Spirits, and Beer.
Always a pleasure.
Let's, first off, that looks like the post-election wine bottle right there. That might be the biggest bottle you've ever brought in. I thought that they were all pretty standard. I mean, you have different sizes and shapes, but that's like the Texas Mickey of wine right there.
Yeah, it sure is. And that's actually only the beginning. So
that's the starter pack.
That's right. A 750 is your usual, I would say, the usual bottle that most people think of. Then you have a half bottle, which would be a 375, and then you have a split, and so those are the smaller ones.
Right.
And then from the 750, you go up. There's another, I think I'm going to say 8 sizes. There's even, you can find, it's not legal in Alberta actually, but 30-liter bottles of champagne and stuff, which would be lots of fun, right?
What?
So 60 bottles of wine, essentially 50 bottles inside of a giant champagne bottle. But in Alberta, licensees are not allowed to sell anything larger than a 3-liter. So twice the size of what we have today. Today is a 1.5.
Is that all booze or is that just wine?
That's a good question. It's all booze, really. Like you would never.
I can't imagine you having like
a 5-liter of rye or something.
Like I know there's kegs and that kind of thing, but that's different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
This is a wine show after all, so let's stick with this one. Give us a little bit of details on this one.
It's fun. So I brought you a large format wine just so that we could have a little bit of that discussion. This is Masi Campofiorin. So for the listeners, probably very, very well-known wine. One of the best-selling wines in Alberta, actually. So it's from Italy. It's from the Veneto. It's from Valpolicella. And we've talked before in the past about Valpolicella and Ripasso and Amarone. So this is Masi's Campofiorin. It's a 2014. So this marks the 50th anniversary of them making this wine. So it's kind of a special bottle.
Absolutely. What when it comes to wines, is that something that they do proudly, is celebrate those anniversaries and those birthdays? I assume because that is kind of a celebratory drink that they would celebrate their own drinks.
For sure. You're always looking year in, year out, I think, to have something about the vintage be something that you can market and that makes it special. So whether it be actually the weather was a great year or whatever it may be. So for sure, especially places like in Italy and France and some of these older wineries that do have that heritage, you really are reaching some pretty significant milestones. The winery is much older than that. It's just this particular wine, the Campofiorin, and the style in which they're making it is 50 years. So, and Masi is very well known in the Valpolicella area. They're sort of like the godfather, if you will, of that area, and really brought commercial success to the wine region. It had long history, but sort of that global attention, Masi had a big hand in that for sure.
Very cool. Heading into the next month or so, everybody's focus is on Easter and planning ahead. How do you get the best soiree going? So any tips heading into the Easter break?
Sure. I think this is always fun. That's why we have it today, this large format. Whenever you bring the bottle, I mean, you made a comment right off the hop there. It's like, oh, that's a really big bottle of wine. So it's always fun and sort of a little bit of ceremony and romance to it, and you can pull out a decanter and decant the wine if you like. And let's face it, at a lot of our gatherings, or even if like another couple comes over to your house for dinner with you and your wife, come on, there's 2 bottles being opened, right? One kind of before dinner and then one during and after dinner, right?
Maybe even 3.
So right? And so it's always fun to have these large format wines. They do age a little bit better if you're interested in lying your wines down. They sort of evolve a little bit slower and last a little bit longer, so that's fun. And Masi Campofiorin always does great at that sort of Easter and Christmas, these sort of wine heavy festive seasons. People definitely lean to some of these familiar wines, and Masi Campofiorin is one of them. So $42 for the double bottle, and so it's a great buy and pretty fun. So
this might sound like a stupid question, but it's one of those questions that I haven't been able to ask because it's the first time we've brought in a bigger wine bottle. I know it's milk, but at the same time, if you get a bigger bottle, do you have any challenges with it keeping?
Like once you've opened it? No, it's kind of the same idea, just as your regular bottle of wine would be.
Right.
I always say I don't know why you're doing that, but in this case, if it's a double bottle, maybe you were a little more enthusiastic when you first opened it. But same idea. I mean, you're a few days, 3-4 days, kind of maybe tops, for a young wine like this. If it was like an old vintage wine, you would probably want to drink it a little bit faster, but it's not going to hold any longer once you've opened it. Once you've exposed it to oxygen, it's on a downward slope for sure.
Right, and there's no real way of being able to make it keep any longer.
Don't pull the cork. So I mean, like I said, large format wines will definitely age a lot longer. That's why you have these like 30-liter bottles out there in the global market, because some of these collector wines, you get an 8-liter bottle and you can keep that for 30, 40, 50 years, and it really develops a little more slowly and a little bit more complexity and stuff. So
going back to the Easter idea, and I assume it's a lot like Christmas or any other big gathering, is that your hope is to appease the masses, and so anything that is really in style going into this Easter?
I think Easter is a little more interesting than potentially Christmas and Thanksgiving. I think those are typically turkey and ham kind of thing, whereas Easter, I feel like you see a little bit more stuff, maybe some leg of lamb or people getting into roast beef and stuff like that, so it's fun. But this is a great wine for those situations, I think, because it is really kind of fruit driven. You don't want anything too sour and too tart. I usually say I can't stand Sauvignon Blanc for a white wine at those things. It's too dry and too tart. But fruit-driven wine, and it's Italy, right? So it's meant to go with food. So there's a lot of people, like you say, appeal to the masses, but there's usually a big spread on your table at these times and all kinds of different dishes. So you're kind of playing it safe by just having this juicy, fruit-driven Italian wine, and it'll work really well.
And the great idea here about the fact that we are on the road for these next few Wednesdays is you get to not only pump the tires of your in Calgary stores, but you have stores outside city limits as well.
Yeah, that's right. We don't have anything in Nanton, but we've got stores in Okotoks and in High River, so we're servicing those communities a little further outside of town. And there's also a store in Strathmore. We're in Cochrane. So we do have some of these Airdrie. So we are on the outskirts of Calgary as well. So if you're listening and you live in sort of rural Alberta and you're a little bit of a drive or you don't want to drive into Calgary, we have some of those locations out there to service you. So,
or worst case scenario, if you're heading out on the road for Easter, you know that you can go outside city limits. You don't have to be like, I got to turn around and get back to the store. So that works out well.
The High River store is great. It's got a great selection. Same with Strathmore and our Cochrane locations. They're all decent sizes, a couple of 1,000 square feet with a great selection and all of the same items we always have on sale and on ad and stuff. So it is great options.
Awesome. It is Wine Wednesday. I will give it a little bit of taste. Again, give us a little bit of the detail here and what it's cost.
Sure. It's 2014 Masi Campofiorin. It's their 50-year anniversary. The large format that I have here is only available at our flagship stores. So our tasting centers, plus Kensington, Mount Pleasant, sort of those larger stores that we have. It's $42, but of course all of our locations will carry Masi Campofiorin in the regular $7.50 bottles, so you can grab those anytime.
It is a tasty one. Mike Roberts from Co-op Wine, Spirits, and Beer on this Wine Wednesday. Thank you so much, sir.
Always a pleasure.